Well, good morning, everyone, from the Wellness Homesteader. It is a very rainy Saturday here in Ohio, so I thought it might be a good day for us to start talking about preparedness. This is not, I promise, going to be a video about COVID, but I think the pandemic has really affected everyone in one way or another, whether it's through your job, through childcare. So I wanted to talk a little bit about panic versus prepare. And I hope this will be a really fun and helpful video for you. So I'm actually sitting on my stash, by my stash. So I'm going to share with you today a little bit about my pantry, what I was prepared for when some of the shortages hit, and what I wasn't prepared for. So stay tuned. Well, I don't think anyone was not worried about toilet paper during the pandemic. Of all things that I thought we might go short of, since it wasn't a stomach illness, I did not think toilet paper would be one of them. However, I have changed how much toilet paper I keep on supply. I don't hoard, but I do have a little bit more in case the shortages strike again. But after it was kind of all over and things returned to normal, and I know it's still up and down on availability of products, etc., I thought, what did I really not have? If this would have been a longer emergency, a time I didn't have electricity or water or an ability to drive somewhere, what would I have really needed that I didn't have? So, number one, water. I had nothing but tap water. Thankfully, wasn't an issue, but we have had periods of time, I'm on a city water supply, where we've had water issues. So how much water do you stock and where do you put it? We're gonna talk about that. Strangely enough, the other things that I didn't have, and this is embarrassing as a nurse, basic things like Neosporin ointment or antibacterial ointment, and bandages, Band-Aids. I'm sure you noticed on my arm, or maybe noticed on my arm, burned myself recently. So when you homestead, there's little accidents. You cut yourself with tools when you're doing a repair. You're out in the garden, you get stung by a wasp, things happen. And I was not prepared. As a nurse, I just always thought, well, I'll just go. I live half a mile from a drugstore. I'll just go get what I need. And at that time, that really just wasn't possible. So I have a resource that before we do the pantry tour and talk about some of the things I have done and I am doing, I have a resource I want to share with you guys. This is not a new book by any means. It's called Making the Best of Basics. And actually, I have two of them. This one is a little more in-depth. It's an earlier version. This one was done late 70s. You can buy them both on Amazon or through any used bookstore. These books, although they're old, are invaluable for you to plan. Just for what you should have for yourself, your family, your neighbors, however, your little inner circle, your tribe that you'd be providing for. Like, how much water do you need? How much food should you have on hand? So I love charts and graphs and ways to keep track of things. So I just made a little copy here. I hope y'all can see that. So this is one of the charts that they have where you can actually keep like a balance sheet of items that you're keeping in storage if you want to start prepping and building your pantry. Now, I'm not a true prepper, but I do have a plan B and maybe half of a plan C just in case. Because of where I live, we have had some pretty long power outages where, you lose everything in your freezer, you lose everything in your refrigerator. You may have to boil water, and not have electricity to do it. So anyway, this goes through everything, through food supplies you need, household supplies, how long batteries last, what kind of plan B should you make. And I don't want the book to scare you, and I didn't get too focused on every little detail, but this really was a kickoff point for me. And I actually got this book over a year ago when I was recovering from back surgery. And I thought, well, this should make for some interesting reading. But when I started to read it, I almost panicked because I realized how unprepared I really was, how I had no way of sourcing water if I didn't have water through the public system. I wasn't storing water. I wasn't storing much food. I was doing some gardening, but mostly just eating out of the garden. So I came up with this brilliant idea, which this is kind of a funny story, you guys. You'll like it. I'm going to start canning again, right? So for those of you who aren't canners, there's two basic types of canning. There's canning in a water bath, where you basically just heat the product for so long, and the nature of the acidity or the sugar level makes it safe when it seals, when the jar seals. And then there's foods that have to be pressure canned or canned in a pressure canner because there is not enough acidity or sugar to make them shelf stable. And that's a hard sentence to say. So I thought, I'll start with water bath canning. You know, I'm in this big back brace, walking with cane, and at least that's a little bit lighter, a little bit easier. So I made jelly, and I made jam, and I made apple butter, and then I made some peach butter, and I made enough jams and jellies, and I've given enough away that I'm still probably not gonna make any jam or jelly this year. I got a little carried away last year. But that was a great way to learn and to start with the water bath canning. It was very, very simple. So canning is a perfect way. Even if you don't have a garden, you don't have a space to garden, and we'll talk about this in future videos, you can buy from the farmer's market. You can buy, we have an Amish auction. There's also a Mennonite auction where they auction off bulk produce at a very reduced rate. Many times you can get organic. You can bring that home. You can can it and save it for a time in the winter when you can't go to your backyard and pick it. So canning is a very important part of being prepared. I also do a lot of dehydrating, and I'm going to be doing a video. Well, actually I did the video and I'm having a little trouble editing on strawberries because it's one of the easiest things to dehydrate, and it's something that everybody can use and love. So we've got canning, we've got dehydrating, and then we also have to have some ways to store things like our grains. I was amazed that you could not buy a bag of bread flour or a jar of yeast for weeks during the pandemic. I actually was nearing running out of bread flour. So I did a little research. I discovered that you can add vital wheat gluten to regular flour and it makes bread flour. Now I have that conversion. I have plenty on hand, and I'm going to show you some of my storage, and I hope y'all don't think I'm crazy. And I know I did not start out at this level. I arrived at this level, and I'm pretty comfortable now with where I am, that if something happens where I could not leave my house for 30 days, I'm okay. I get a little short on the toilet paper. I'm trying not to hoard that because that's a little scary for me. But anyway, I digress. So before we jump into looking at all of the things around me, I'm actually sitting in a low chair. I'm gonna try not to make you dizzy when I do this. I'm still learning videoing, so please forgive anything that looks unprofessional. I reached out to some of my current YouTube friends, and said, give me your top questions about canning. Like, grandma canned. We don't can nowadays, you know, why are you canning? So the first question I got was, what was your worst canning failure? So, and this is kind of funny, pickles, because they're cooked with vinegar and a lot of sugar, that's a water bath. So in addition to jelly, I made a lot of pickles last year. I grew cucumbers. It was very easy. Go out, pick the cucumbers, blah, blah, blah. I don't like cucumber peel. So I harvest this nice harvest of cucumbers. I peeled them all. Then I processed them and they promptly turned into sort of like cucumber mush. So definitely not the way to pickle cucumbers. I, in fact, now pickle in the refrigerator, and maybe one day we'll do some refrigerator pickles because they're super simple and they're fun to do. And you can buy the supplies right at your grocery store or local farmer's market. So those were so bad, even my son wouldn't eat them. So that was probably my worst failure. Where do I start canning? I would say start with things you know your family will eat. That's super important. Don't can things you're not going to eat. I've done that too. And start with water baths. So start with pickles and relishes and jams and jellies, not as many as I made, but that's an easy way to start to gain your confidence before you start investing in more equipment or more jars or more lids. Right now, there is a huge shortage of any type of canning equipment, whether it's a ball jar. The biggest shortage is of the flat or the lid that actually seals down. I mean, people are price gouging. Go look. It's hard to find. Thankfully, I was stocked up. I didn't have a problem there, and I pretty much have finished my canning for the year, except what I'm gonna do for you all so that we can learn some new things together. All right, what is the strangest thing I ever canned? And this was strange, but it's really good because I'm gonna show it to you. So I had a lot of tomatoes last year, and then somehow I had a whole bunch of raisins. I must have bought them twice, and just some odd combinations of fruits and vegetables. And I found a recipe for a tomato fruit chutney that you put on like a pork roast, or you could put it on rice, and it's actually really, really tasty. It looks weird. Tomatoes and raisins kind of looks weird, but it actually tastes very good. So that's probably the weirdest thing I made, but I really, really liked it. And in fact, I'm almost out of it. And then finally, what's my favorite thing to can? I would have said jelly last year until I realized that I'm gonna be eating jelly until I'm 150 years old. Actually, this year, my favorite thing to can has been shelf-ready items. So things I can go grab off the shelf. And I'm sitting here between my two pantries. And just heat up on the days where you're tired, on the days where you've been working in the yard. Maybe you don't feel well. Maybe you have unexpected company. Maybe your kids invite 5 kids over and you need to feed a whole bunch of people and you didn't really plan for that. I will share, I'm not a huge meat eater. I do eat meat, but I eat a lot of vegetables. So you may see missing in my pantry, like, okay, where's the meat? I did can some meat this year, so I am prepared for that as well, because I certainly have times where I need to prepare a meal quickly. If I have company or an impromptu guest, or my son comes home, or my mom is here, or whatever, where I need to fix a meal that does involve meat. So I'm gonna stand up here and I'm gonna adjust the camera, so I apologize in advance. I'm actually sitting, like I said, on my stash. Get this jug of water out of the way. So I normally do not keep this right here, but I thought it was a good place. Let me do this so I'm not, there we go. That's a little better. I thought it was a good place maybe to put it for this video, and then I'll drag it where it goes. What's actually in here, and you can buy special 5-gallon storage buckets that have like a 50-year shelf life. I'm gonna go through what's in here quickly enough. I don't need that kind of shelf life. What's in here, this is whole wheat that I can grind through my wheat grinder to make bread. I make all of my own bread. So if flour is not in supply, I can make my own. There's other ways. I have some of my things sealed in Mylar bags, and we'll do a video on, you know, how do I seal all this stuff and how much does this cost? It's not expensive. I actually keep, buy my bags of flour in 25-pound bags now, divide them up into 5 pounds, seal them. They're good for at least 5 years with an oxygen absorber in there. So I have a lot of these. this is kind of different, so I stuck it in there. I kind of got a little carried away with how much bread I made, and I had a lot of dehydrated onions and celery, and I thought, wow, I'm halfway to stuffing. So I do have a vacuum sealer, so I simply vacuum sealed this, and I actually did this in March. So we'll see if it's still good come November. I'll check it before then, but you can vacuum seal, and I do that as well, and it's inexpensive. The bags aren't expensive at all. So that's the basic ways that I have things stored here. The one thing I do not store in these bags is sugar, because it turns to a brick. And so I keep my sugar actually in gallon jars. Much easier to take a butter knife and jiggle out sugar from a gallon jar than it is to try to break apart something that's in a Mylar bag, where you may split the bag and lose the contents. So we're gonna start our tour. I'm sorry to make you dizzy. What I actually have here is 2 pantries, and I love these pantries. One side is always open, and yes, I dusted before I made the video. I actually decided it would be a good day to go through all of my stock. You do need to take care of your canned goods. You need to check the seals regularly. I found one with an open seal, which is not bad for as many cans as I have. I did find one of the dreaded pickles, which that now resides in my garbage disposal. So at any rate, it's always good to dust and keep your stock rotated. You want your oldest canned in front, your newest in the back. So this year I did about 50 pounds of tomatoes already. Last year I did 60, and I still had quite a few of whole tomatoes, but I was down to 1 jar of salsa, no ketchup, no spaghetti sauce, no pasta sauce. So up here I have, I think this is salsa and ketchup. I also keep some of my dehydrated goods in here. So this shelf is primarily things that I use to make some of my salves and ointments. So it's more external herbs that I've dried and then stored. The next level are my dehydrated items that I've actually vacuum sealed into a mason jar. So these are banana chips. I just finished, oh, I love these strawberry chips. These are so good. You can put them in cereal and oatmeal, all kinds of ways. Did you know you can dehydrate marshmallows? That's another fun treat that you can put in hot chocolate if you don't want to keep marshmallows on the shelf. They don't get stale. They just rehydrate when you put them in the cocoa. Don't know if I can get it. Yeah, there we go, down far enough. So down here, we have more shelf-ready items. So this is actually spaghetti sauce. I have homemade French onion soup ready for the bowl. And then I eat a lot of beans and rice, so ranch flavored beans. And these are all already, pop the lid, heat them up, you're ready to go. So your meal is prepared. Okay. On the other side, the bottom shelf is my meat shelf. So, gosh, I feel like I'm hunching over. Sorry, guys. So I have some chicken soup. I have some taco meat. I have sloppy joes. This is vegetables, carrots, sweet potatoes, green beans. And that was all canned this year. Then we move to the dreaded jelly. And yes, I have 2 complete cabinet spaces full of jam and jelly. I am going to share this with friends and family, so be expecting it, everyone. I've shared a lot, but this is still way more jam and jelly than I'll ever eat. I enjoy making it. I really hardly ever eat it. So drop me a line, comment if you need some jam and jelly. I'll get you covered. Okay, let's move over here to cabinet number 2, which is a little different. Up here I have something that I'm experimenting with. I am fermenting and lactating lemons to try to use in some chicken dishes. So this is actually like a salt preserved lemon, and they're pushed down in the jar and held into the brine by another jar that you just can't see. So this is my experiment in the making. So we'll see how that comes out. This is my condiment area. So some of my fabulous tomato chutney. And yes, I make my own ketchup. Yes, I make my own mustard. I have some corn salsa. I have some tomato jam, which is not, okay, I'm back to the jam, I know, right? But it's more of a savory jam than it is a sweet jam. So we'll squeeze on down one. Pickled banana peppers, pickle relish, barbecue sauce, blueberry barbecue sauce. Almost as much fun as making jam, let me tell you, but tastes absolutely amazing. And I got this recipe from the Needy Homesteader, so it wasn't a Kim original. And then down here are my whole tomatoes. Most of these are from this year, not all of them. So what I did this morning is pulled out my 2019 and made sure it was pulled forward. I don't have a lot over here. I cook with cast iron. I know it's far from my kitchen, but my kitchen doesn't have a lot of cabinets. This is where I keep my sugar. I have some vanilla beans that I need to get soaking here. And then this is something I use as a sweetener. It's white clover jelly. Okay, I did make some jelly this year. Forgot about this. It's kind of the consistency of honey, but it makes a great sweetener for like on toast or on pancakes, or even stir into your tea, and it has the most delicate honey taste. And I made it with clover from my backyard. And then a few bad things like Kim's chocolate syrup. And then I just have a little space, only because I cleaned this morning. So that is a look today at my pantry. So now I'm going to turn it over to you all for your comments. What do you want to know? What do you want to learn? Why did I do all of this? Why didn't I just go to the store and buy 25 cans of jelly, jars of jelly, and 10 cans of beans? And I want to tell you, I know everything that went into those, jars. There's no preservatives. There's no additives. There's no chemicals. There's no artificial color. There's no artificial sweetener. Although maybe I should have some artificial sweetener, but I like food. Much of it was grown either in my yard organically, or if I could not get it organically from my yard, I have a limited garden size, I went in search. And sometimes organic is a little bit more expensive for me because I am trying to avoid chemicals. I'm selective, but I do try to get organic when I can. And living a country life, it's a little easier for me. I have connections, so I can get, like for my Bath and Body products, goat's milk, that the goats are fed with non-GMO feed, and just some incredible things that you can source locally. But anyway, what do I want to know from you? I want to know what you want to know next. What do you want to do? Would you like to see some canning? Would you like to see some dehydrating, which is really simple? And since it's later in the season, might be a good place to start. Here in Ohio, we have had, this is the earliest I have had my garden in. I start my seeds indoors, but I cannot believe how much I've gotten out of my garden, and some of it's done for the season. Pardon me, and today is August 1st. So drop me a message below, a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and we'll get back together again soon. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.